We've been married for 8 years, but my husband has always forbidden our daughter from calling him
Dad.
It's because his first love son has severe depression and can't handle any stimulation. When he was absent from our daughter's parent-teacher conference again because of Vanessa and her son, I finally gave up hope. I took out the divorce agreement and left with my daughter. I went to the school and found my daughter's teacher, Miss Xenia. I want to transfer my daughter to another school. The teacher was surprised. Why do you suddenly want to transfer? I replied calmly. Her father works out of town, and he's finally settled down. He's going to take us there. The teacher exclaimed. That's good. I thought you were a single-parent family. I smiled.
Not now, but soon. 1.
I had just stepped out of the office when I saw Malcolm walking towards me with Vanessa and her son. Vanessa's son seemed to have told a joke, and the three of them were laughing happily. My heart ached, and I instinctively stopped. When he saw me, the little boy's expression changed instantly, and he hid behind Malcolm. The man also assumed a protective posture, his cold gaze sweeping over me as he questioned, "What are you doing here?" Malcolm was my daughter's father, yet he was protecting someone else's child. I clenched my palms, and the last bit of lingering affection in my heart was erased. Lowering my gaze, I said calmly, "My daughter is also a student at this school. Can I come and find out about her from the teacher?" Vanessa laughed. "What a coincidence. We're also here to see Miss Xenia. Liam has a bit of a stomach ache, and Malcolm is worried that the milk provided by the school is of poor quality and bad for the child's health, so he's simply invested in a dairy factory with an acquaintance. It's clean and hygienic, and parents can rest assured." I pretended not to see the provocation in the woman's eyes, but my throat felt bitter. My daughter had multiple allergies since birth, and the food provided by the school cafeteria was very mixed. I was worried, so I asked the teacher several times, but Malcolm lectured me saying, "Teachers also have a difficult job. What do you mean by always bothering them?" He wouldn't let me go to the teacher, so I could only tell my daughter to be extra careful. But children are young after all, and they can be careless sometimes. Seeing my daughter's arms covered in red rashes, my heart ached. It wasn't until later, when I got up early every day to prepare and bring her a lunchbox to school, that the situation improved. As for Malcolm, I originally thought he was sticking to his principles. After all, it wouldn't sound good to always use his connections. But Vanessa's words were like a slap in the face. It turned out that he wasn't unwilling to use his connections. He was just unwilling to use his connections for us, mother and daughter. I swallowed the words about my daughter transferring and said indifferently, "Is that so? Congratulations." Then turned and left. When I returned to the classroom, my daughter had already packed her school bag and was standing at the door waiting for me. When she saw me, her eyes lit up and she ran over excitedly, handing me her report card. "Mom, I saw Dad just now. Is Dad going to come to my parent-teacher conference? Look, I got first place in every subject. Even Miss Xenia praised me for being so good." Looking at the excellent report card, my vision blurred. I rubbed her hair and then took out my phone to call Malcolm. No one answered when I called. I called several more times before the phone was finally answered. "Hello, what's up?" The man's voice was cold. Under my daughter's expectant gaze, I said, "When he got first place in the midterm exam, she hopes you can come to the parent-teacher conference." Malcolm was silent for a moment, then said, "Okay, I got it." He hung up the phone in a hurry. But I didn't care. I was just overjoyed. I squatted down and told my daughter the good news. Dad agreed. He'll come to your parent-teacher conference. Really? My daughter jumped up like a happy little deer, raised her smiling face, and ran back to the classroom to wipe her desk and chair over and over again. Then she looked at me. "Mom, lend me your phone." I handed her the phone, a little puzzled. "What are you going to do?" My daughter took two pictures of her seat and said, "Seriously? I'm afraid Dad won't be able to find my seat. So I'll take a picture and send it to him so he won't get lost."
2.
My daughter sent the photo with my phone. She must have been too happy because she couldn't help but send a voice message as well. Her voice was timid. "Dad, this is my seat in the classroom. Don't get lost, okay?" Hearing my daughter's timid, childish voice, my heart ached, and I reached out to ruffle her hair. I prayed in my heart that Malcolm wouldn't disappoint us, mother and daughter, this time. Other parents had started to arrive. My daughter clutched my clothes tightly, her eyes fixed on the direction of the stairs. But Malcolm never appeared. When Miss Xenia came over for the third time to ask me if Wendy's father hadn't arrived yet, my daughter's tears could no longer be held back. She clutched my clothes and raised her pale little face. Mom, does Dad hate me? That's why he doesn't want to come to my parent-teacher conference. I hugged her tightly. No, it has nothing to do with Wendy. It's Dad's fault. Then I stood up and said to Miss Xenia, I'm sorry to keep you and the other parents waiting. I'll attend this parent-teacher conference. My daughter has always been well-behaved and has good grades, so the teachers liked her very much, so they didn't say much. As soon as the parent-teacher conference ended, I received a call from Malcolm. I was so angry. Just in time, I wanted to ask him clearly why he lied to my daughter since he couldn't attend the parent-teacher conference. Unexpectedly, as soon as I answered the phone, Malcolm's angry voice came through the receiver. Where is Wendy now? Tell her to come over and apologize to Liam immediately. Because of the voice message she sent, Liam had a relapse and is now in the hospital. I was stunned and then realized what Malcolm was talking about. I felt like I had fallen into an ice cellar. Since Vanessa and her son appeared, Malcolm had no longer allowed Wendy to call him Dad. It was simply because Vanessa's son had severe depression, and Vanessa and her ex-husband were divorced. Whenever he heard the word, Dad, he would have an attack. Because of this so-called depression, Malcolm left us, mother and daughter, time and time again. Wendy gradually realized that as soon as she called
Dad,
her father would get angry and not come home, so she stopped calling him that in person, only when she was alone with me. This time, she even sent a voice message. If Malcolm hadn't given the phone to Liam to play with, how could the latter have heard the voice message and had an attack? I looked at Wendy not far away and forcibly suppressed my anger. This is not Wendy's fault. Wendy will not apologize. It's your fault, Malcolm. After saying that, I hung up the phone without caring about the man's reaction. Adjusting my expression, I walked towards my daughter. You did a great job. Mom is going to give you a reward. Tell Mom what you want. A toy or a big meal. But my daughter shook her head. She held my hand with her small hand. I just want Mommy to always be with me. My eyes were sore, and I said hoarsely, Okay, Mommy will always be with you. I hugged my daughter, and the idea of leaving had never been clearer. 3. I took my daughter out for a nice dinner and bought her favorite dress and toys. Thinking that Friday would be a good day for her to relax, Wendy insisted on finishing her homework. She has always been sensible and knows that Malcolm and I are busy with work, so she has never worried me about her studies. After my daughter fell asleep, I was also about to go to bed. But I heard a noise outside and went out to see that it was Malcolm. The man was holding a child in his arms. It was Liam. Behind Malcolm, Vanessa smiled at me. Sorry for disturbing you. I froze in place, the cold wind blowing through the living room, making my hands and feet ice cold. What are you doing here with them? I practically squeezed these words out from between my teeth. Wasn't it enough to have them outside? Now they're going to squeeze our mother-daughter living space at home? Malcolm's eyes were a bit evasive at first, but after hearing my question, he frowned and became more assertive. Liam's condition is unstable, and he needs me to be with him. If I stay at Vanessa's, it will be inconvenient, and you will worry more if you know, so I can only bring them back. This way, under your nose, you won't worry, right? I was shocked by the man's sophistry. Just as I was about to speak, I heard a childish and soft voice coming from behind me. What's wrong, Mommy? Turning around, I saw my daughter rubbing her eyes and standing at the door of the room in a daze. When she saw the figures at the entrance, Wendy's face lit up, and she was about to call Malcolm, but when she saw Liam in his arms, her little face quickly drooped. The man was oblivious, and even when he saw his daughter, he said sternly, Wendy, you're awake. Just come over and apologize to your brother. It's all because of you that your brother became like this. For Wendy, Malcolm's words undoubtedly exacerbated her guilt. My daughter looked at me helplessly. I glared at Malcolm, protecting Wendy behind me. Malcolm, I told you Wendy didn't do anything wrong. It's your fault. Malcolm frowned, but his gaze glanced at the big and small bags on the coffee table in the living room. They were all the reward gifts I bought for Wendy in the afternoon. The man seemed to have caught my weak point, and his face turned cold. Wendy, how did I teach you? You did something wrong and you bought so many things. Are you gloating?
4.
My daughter trembled at the scolding, and her eyes immediately filled with tears. I clenched my fists tightly. I bought these things for Wendy. If you have any temper, take it out on me. Liam heard the noise, looked up drowsily, and wrapped his arms around Malcolm's neck. Daddy Malcolm, have we arrived? As soon as he finished speaking, a flash of panic crossed Malcolm's eyes when he looked at me. I sneered. Oh, so you don't let your own daughter call you dad, but you've actually recognized another son outside. Malcolm clamped his lips shut and didn't speak. Vanessa then spoke up in a wronged tone. Malcolm is just trying to help us, mother and son. Sister, don't be angry. If there's any mistake, it's all my fault. It's me and Liam who have disrupted your family harmony. Let's go. Liam, get down from Uncle Malcolm and go with Mommy. Liam burst into tears. No, I don't want to go woo-woo. I like Uncle Malcolm. I want to stay with Uncle Malcolm. Vanessa wiped her tears. Why are you so disobedient, child? Just because Uncle Malcolm is good to us, you can't make Uncle Malcolm feel difficult. Then, she looked at Malcolm with deep sadness. Malcolm, thank you for taking care of us during this time. We, mother and son, are very grateful. In the future, let's meet again, if we have the chance. With that, she took Liam's hand and walked out. The man turned around and looked at me with disappointment. Yara, you've changed. Before I could speak, he continued. Let's separate for a while and calm down. I nodded and said, okay. Then picked up the document on the table. This is the insurance policy I bought for Wendy. You sign it and then leave. Malcolm was busy chasing people and didn't look carefully at what the document was. He quickly signed his name on it, and I calmly watched everything. Until the door was closed, I squatted down as if I had collapsed. My daughter came over and hugged me. Mom, are we not going to have a dad anymore?
5.
I held her back and closed my eyes. Yes, we don't need him. I submitted the divorce agreement signed by both parties, and the cooling-off period was 30 days. During this time, I sold some of my belongings for cash. Then I applied to my company to transfer to a branch in another city. During this time, Malcolm never came back. I took the time to go to the city where I would be living in the future and help my daughter complete the transfer procedures. For the last week, my daughter didn't go to school but studied at home. Wendy is always self-disciplined, so I wasn't worried. The day before we left, Wendy curled up in my arms, listening to me describe the city and the environment of another school. Wendy fell asleep while listening, and before falling asleep, she asked me drowsily, Mom, should we say goodbye to Dad? I knew that blood was thicker than water, and family ties were not so easily severed. After going there, I wouldn't be in frequent contact with Malcolm. It would be good to see him one last time. So I went to the bathroom and called Malcolm. This time it connected quickly. I have something to tell you. Malcolm seemed a little surprised. Coincidentally, I have something to tell you too. I've contacted a reputable psychiatrist, and I'm going to take Liam to see a doctor with Vanessa. It might take about 3 months. We'll be leaving tomorrow. Yara, are you listening? I took a deep breath and replied. Malcolm's tone softened. This is a rare opportunity. Yara, you've worked hard during this time. Take care of your daughter. By the way, what did you want to tell me? Nothing. I smiled. I wish you a pleasant journey. Then, I hung up the phone without hesitation. The next day, Wendy and I went to the airport on time. Most of our luggage had been mailed, and we only carried 2 small bags with us. Wendy seemed a little lost because she didn't get to see Malcolm one last time. I didn't know how to comfort her. I could only stay quietly by her side. The broadcast announced boarding, and I took Wendy's hand and walked towards the boarding gate, but a man's surprised voice came from behind. Tara, Wendy? Where are you going? I turned around and looked at the 3 people who looked like a family, my expression calm, and I said nothing. Vanessa smiled and said, Could it be that my sister heard that you were going to take Liam out to see a doctor, so she wanted to go with us? Malcolm frowned and looked at me disapprovingly. Didn't I tell you it's only 3 months if you take Wendy around like this? Won't it delay her studies? Just as I was about to speak, my daughter suddenly spoke up. No, Uncle Malcolm, Mom and I are not going with you. We're just going on a trip.
6.
I looked down at my daughter sharply. Her eyes were red, but she still held my hand tightly. Malcolm's expression froze for a moment when he heard Wendy's words. He asked in a daze, Wendy, what did you call me? Biting her lip, my daughter called out, Uncle Malcolm. Malcolm's face was full of disbelief. He blurted out, How can you call me uncle? I'm your dad. Malcolm. Vanessa interrupted him in time. The man froze, turned to look at Vanessa and Liam behind him, swallowed the rest of his words, turned his head, and dared not look at us.
Wendy.
You and your mother go on a trip and have fun. Dad, Uncle will come pick you up when you get back. I looked at Malcolm coldly and said nothing. He didn't know there would be no next time. Disappointment was also full in my daughter's eyes. Holding my hand, she whispered, Mom, let's go, okay? I turned around with my daughter and stepped into the boarding gate on the plane. My daughter silently looked out the window, and I said softly, After a while, the plane will take off, and Wendy will fly into the clouds like a little fairy. Wendy turned around, a smile appeared on her small face, but tears flowed down her cheeks. Yeah, Mom is a little fairy too. I hugged her. Don't worry, Mom will always be with you. Because I had arranged everything in advance, we went straight to the new house after getting off the plane. Seeing the new room, my daughter's mood improved a lot. I coaxed her to sleep. You can go to a new school tomorrow and meet new friends. Wendy, forget all the unhappy things before. Wendy nodded. I slept with my daughter at night, and I fell asleep quickly after a tiring day. The next day, after sending my daughter to school, I was about to report to the new company, but I swiped through Vanessa's new post on social media. A photo of Malcolm and Liam. In the photo, the man was listening attentively to the doctor in a white coat, Liam was sitting obediently beside him, and Vanessa only showed half of her face, but she was smiling very happily. The caption read, I thought I was at the end of my RD, but then I realized that there was light at the end of the tunnel. Thankfully, you've always been there. I originally thought I would be angry after reading it, but now I found myself calm. It was as if I was looking at two people who had nothing to do with me. I liked the post and commented, a very happy family, congratulations to you. Then I directly deleted and blocked Vanessa. I don't want this person to appear in my and Wendy's lives anymore.
7.
I just didn't expect Malcolm to call. Shouldn't he be wholeheartedly accompanying Vanessa and her son right now? How could he have time to deal with me and Wendy? After the call connected, Malcolm's familiar voice came through. Honey, how is your trip with Wendy going? I sneered sarcastically. Even now, he thought we were on a trip and hadn't noticed anything unusual. Even so, I didn't want to remind him. Pretty good. What's up? Malcolm seemed relieved. I know what happened these 2 days made you and Wendy a little uncomfortable. Don't worry, when Liam's illness is cured and Vanessa won't be under so much pressure, I'll come back and accompany you wholeheartedly. By the way, where's Wendy? I want to talk to her. I said expressionlessly, Wendy is having a great time. I can't call her. Vaguely, I heard Vanessa's voice in the background. Malcolm, Liam is awake and wants to see you. Okay, I'll be right there. The man's tone instantly became tense, and he hurriedly said, Honey, please tell Wendy for me. Dad will go on a trip with her next time. Looking at the hung-up phone, I turned off the phone without any nostalgia and went to report to the company. Because I used to be a manager at the headquarters, the branch had always heard of me. My boss smiled and said, Welcome actually, with your experience, you can completely take my position. I feel sorry for you. I shook his hand. Just to make a living, I still need your guidance. I worked hard, just to give my daughter a better life. When I went to pick up my daughter from school in the evening, she had been at school for a day and seemed to be in a much better mood. She held my hand excitedly and said, The new school is so big and the classmates are all very nice. I even made 2 new friends today. I smiled and rubbed her head. Over the next month, Wendy and I gradually got back on track. Malcolm would call from time to time, and I don't know if he felt something, but he called to care about me and Wendy more times in the past month and a half than in the whole of last year. And my attitude became more and more perfunctory. When the man asked to see Wendy again, I directly and impatiently said, "You should take care of Vanessa and her son first. We don't need your concern." Then I hung up the phone directly. Malcolm was probably confused by my attitude, and he called again the next day excitedly saying, "Honey, Liam's treatment is over. I can go back early."
Oh.
I looked at the project file in my hand and said absent-mindedly. The person on the other end of the phone was silent for a while. I casually said, "Is there anything else?" "If not, I'll hang up." "Wait, honey," Malcolm tentatively said in a cautious tone. "My flight is tomorrow. Can you bring Wendy to pick me up?" I said bluntly, "If Wendy and I go to pick you up, we'll have to ask for leave, which will affect my work, and you can't always trouble the teacher, can you?"
8.
Malcolm was silent for a long time before he said hoarsely, "Okay, I'll go back by myself. Is there anything you want to eat? I'll go back and cook it for you earlier." My assistant knocked on my door, whispering, "The client is here." I waved to the other person to show that I understood, and then threw a sentence directly at Malcolm. "Whatever, I'm busy. I'll hang up first." I didn't have time to care about Malcolm's psychology. I've tasted the bitterness I've suffered, and it's time for him to taste it too. The next day, I went out to dinner with the head of the client, and the conversation went very smoothly. Watching the other party sign the contract, I felt a sense of satisfaction I had never had before. The commission from signing this order is enough for me to buy a small house suitable for Wendy and me here, and I might even be able to add another car. Wendy was waiting for me at home. I bought a few of her favorite dishes and a red velvet cake. When I was about to go home, my phone vibrated crazily. When I opened it, it was unsurprisingly all messages from Malcolm. I just glanced at them casually. They were all asking, "Where are you and Wendy? Why are your and Wendy's things gone?" I was too lazy to look at the rest, and I didn't want Malcolm to ruin my good mood, so I directly added him to the blacklist and waited to release him when I went to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get a divorce certificate. When I got home, Wendy was doing her homework at the desk. She wrote carefully stroke by stroke, and my heart felt warm when I looked at her. I put the cake on the table and called out to her. "Wendy, come quickly. Look at what delicious food Mom bought for you." My daughter ran over excitedly. Her eyes lit up when she saw the cake, but she retracted her hand to take the cake. "Mom, please return the cake. These are all for kids. Wendy is grown up now." I was a little surprised. My daughter's happy expression when she saw the cake was not fake. So I bent down and asked patiently what happened. "Wendy is still a child in my heart no matter how old she is, so she can eat cake forever." Wendy hesitated and said, "Mom, do we have enough money? With Dad helping us before, but now that Mom is alone and has to support Wendy, it will be very hard." I was stunned, and my eyes were hot. I said hoarsely, "Don't worry, the money I earn is enough to support 3 Wendys. Come and eat the cake." I opened the packaging and cut a piece of cake for Wendy. My daughter ate happily and didn't forget to remind me, "Mom, you eat it too, okay?" I smiled. My heart softened.
9.
I didn't expect Malcolm to find me here. The man stood across the street, his eyes bloodshot, his beard unshaven, and his voice hoarse. "Honey, Wendy." Wendy looked up at me worriedly.
"Mom."
I stroked her hair. "Go in. Don't be late. Don't worry, Mom will be fine." After watching Wendy go in, I turned to Malcolm. The man seemed to have rushed over, and he didn't bring anything with him. "Honey, I went to your company, and HR said you resigned. I also went to Wendy's school, and the head teacher said she transferred." "You guys?" I interrupted him. "Mr. Malcolm, first of all, I'm not your wife anymore. We've both signed the divorce agreement, and there are only 2 days left for the divorce cooling-off period. As for Wendy, she is your biological daughter, and if she is still willing to recognize you as her father, I will naturally not stop her. But if she doesn't want to, I won't let you harass her." Malcolm gasped for breath, his eyes red. When did we? As he spoke, he seemed to remember something, and his pupils shrank suddenly. That insurance. I nodded expressionlessly. Yes, that insurance policy is the divorce agreement. The man looked at me in disbelief.
Why?
I said indifferently, why? Malcolm, do you have the energy to take care of so many people? When you left Wendy and me for Vanessa and her son time and time again, didn't you ever think there would be such a day? Do you know how happy Wendy was when she heard that you could come to her parent-teacher conference? Malcolm, how could you be so cruel? She is your biological daughter. How could you bear to abandon her and give up on her for someone else's child time and time again? Malcolm turned pale. He tried to argue. I didn't. I curled my lips and took out my phone directly, playing the recording I had made for him. It was a coincidence that I went to the hospital to find Malcolm, but I accidentally overheard the conversation between Vanessa and her son, and I realized that what was called severe depression was all a lie. Liam's childish voice came from the phone. Mom, I don't want to stay in the hospital anymore. I want to go back to school. My friends don't care about me anymore. Followed by Vanessa's. Son, be good. We have nothing now. We must win over your Uncle Malcolm if even he doesn't care about us. We really have nowhere to go. But Mom, Uncle Malcolm has always been so good to us. I don't want to pretend to be sick to deceive him.
Sure.
What are you talking about being sick? You have severe depression. Don't say such things again. Then there was Liam's painful voice. Mom, you hurt me. Liam, be good. As long as you listen, Mom will buy you the toys you want most. I looked at the staggering man in front of me sarcastically. Did you hear that? This is the first love you've been longing to protect. You abandoned your wife and child for a lie. Malcolm, you're ridiculous. I didn't have the patience to waste on him anymore. I put away my phone and said directly, see you at the Civil Affairs Bureau in 2 days. You can come or not. I will directly go through legal proceedings. But I don't want Wendy to see us tear each other apart in court. It's too cruel for her. If you still have a bit of a father's conscience, be there on time, and we'll get a divorce.
10.
2 days later, at the Civil Affairs Bureau, Malcolm arrived on time. In a short time, he had lost a lot of weight and looked a little better than the last time we met. I don't know how he faced Vanessa and her son after he went back, and I don't care. Let's go in. I glanced at the time and turned to enter the Civil Affairs Bureau. Malcolm followed silently behind me. Only when signing did he say, I don't want the property. I'll leave it all to you and Wendy, just as compensation for what I owe you. His voice was bitter. I'm so sorry I owe you, and Wendy too much. I didn't say anything, picked up the pen, and quickly wrote my name in the signature place. Malcolm looked at it silently for a while before picking up the pen to sign. After writing, he looked pale and slumped in the chair as if he had collapsed. After getting the divorce certificate, I strode out of the Civil Affairs Bureau. The man chased after me and asked, Can I still see Wendy in the future? I told you, as long as Wendy is willing, I won't stop her. Malcolm nodded and murmured, That's good, that's good. He left in a daze. I watched the man's back without saying a word. Turning around, I strode in the opposite direction. About a year later, I heard about Malcolm and Vanessa from a friend. They got married. But the Malcolm now was different from before. Not only did he have no property, but he also owed a lot of debts. Vanessa also tore off her gentle mask and became hysterical. They fight every day, and I heard that Vanessa scolds Malcolm at home every day for being useless, and the two of them make a lot of noise, and the neighbors upstairs and downstairs have complained several times. I remained expressionless. I couldn't help but suspect that Malcolm had a vengeful heart towards Vanessa. Otherwise, even if he left the house with nothing, it wouldn't be difficult for him to make a comeback with his ability. After a while, a friend suddenly called me gossiping. Malcolm is in the hospital. I heard that Vanessa couldn't stand him drinking all day, so she impulsively stabbed him with a knife, and there was a lot of blood. Emergency, and the police came. Malcolm's parents insisted on suing Vanessa, and she has been arrested. The trial results will probably come out in a while. That knife was stabbed a bit deep. Malcolm will probably have to wear a urine bag for the rest of his life. I was stunned. I didn't expect things to end up this way. After thinking about it, I decided to tell my daughter this news. Do you want to go see him? My daughter was silent for a moment and shook her head. He's my uncle. I smiled. Yes, he's just an uncle. What does he have to do with us, mother and daughter?